Welcome to this week's edition of The Real Estate Report, and as always, I'm joined in the studio from PRD Nationwide in Horsham with Wes Davidson. Hello, Wes, how are you?
I'm well, Nims, yourself?
Now, this is a bit of a fun story for me because I see that a very famous mansion has been sold, Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion.
That's right, the iconic. Built in 1927, architecturally superb, and of course, well known for various other reasons, but Ned over here is nearly crying because it's sold, but it's sold to the next door neighbour, would you believe, a 32-year-old bought Hugh Hefner's Playboy Mansion. Reportedly sold somewhere between 100 and 200 million. He paid 1.05 million for it back in 1971.
Wow.
And so it's a pretty good return on investment, one would think. And he gets to live there for the rest of his life, so he'll actually become the tenant of the property. So
wow.
Pretty big landmark sale for, I think, a lot of people will know around the world.
I'm sure that was a very happy neighbour as well. But unfortunately, on a down note, now we've seen in the news the floods have been absolutely demolishing Sydney. Now, how does this affect those waterfront properties? Because these are pretty high up properties there.
Oh yeah, they're 4 million plus. There'll be a short term down in the pricing, no doubt, and people will probably be looking a little bit more carefully whether there is a seawall in front of their property on the coast. But honestly, how can you protect the whole coastline, and how can you protect from Mother Nature? It's an inherent part of the risk, I suppose. If you live near a lake or you live near the water, the sea, you could get flooded. No different to the poor people down in Tasmania.
That is true. Now, another thing too, the Reserve Bank, any rate changes?
No, they announced on Tuesday they're holding the rate steady at 1.75 as the base rate, which is a record low, of course. So a lot of people taking advantage from that. Realestate.com actually reported some interesting data on that the other day, and the Australian Bureau of Stats has said there's been a 5% dip in the last few months in people going investment loans. The first home loan is now an average of $330,600 nationally.
Jeez.
And the average home loan for all owner-occupiers is $361,500. So if you've got a loan that's less than those figures, you are lower than the average home loan in Australia, which would encompass most people in this region.
Wow. And we've just had a massive weekend with auctions gone by just in Melbourne. It's been a boom market.
Yeah, well, Sydney was even better. Sydney was over 80%. That's like boom market, so that's really good. And for the first weekend of winter, that's virtually unheard of. And it was very strong in Melbourne. Melbourne was over 70%. But if you look at some of the things that sold in Melbourne, the record price last week was a property in Hotham Street, East Melbourne. It sold for $5.1 million by Kane Real Estate. Good bloke, Kaney. And the cheapest sale was a $240,000 unit. So that's one end to the other. But if you look across the region, so if you look at the states, and we take in all the areas, not just the major cities.
Yep.
Last week, Victoria had a 71% clearance rate. New South Wales, 73%, both pretty healthy. Tasmania had 80%, very healthy.
Yeah.
But then you look around some of the other things, Queensland down to 48%, South Australia 61%, Northern Territory 14%, ACT 52%, and Western Australia 13%.
I had to look at that and see if that was a typo or not, but
No, you'd be very disappointed if you were doing the auctions there last weekend. So 13%, and a lot of people are now tipping that the property, from my reading, that the property prices in Perth may have bottomed out. So there's a lot of renewed investor interest starting to come into the market of Perth and Western Australia, and it'll be interesting to see how that corrects, I think, over the next 12 months.
We've got a lot of phone calls to make to mates over in the West, I can tell you that. Well, thanks so much for popping in the studio for this edition, Wes. And remember, you can catch up on previous editions on the website, prdhorsham.com.au. Wes, thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week.
Have a good long weekend.